who says fools are easy to bully. Although Mu Chang'an, the side consort of Prince Juan's manor, isn't mentally sound, she protects the princess consort Shu Yao fiercely. This wave of fools have their own fortune. Madness protects loved ones' operation is so satisfying to watch. I was born mentally incomplete when I reached marriageable age. I personally chose the kind, Jan-hearted princess consort Duan as my mistress. She didn't mind my foolishness and treated me like her own sister. Grateful in my heart, I regarded her as the most important person in my life. Until Prince Duan returned to the capital after managing the flood disaster in Jiangnan, bringing back a female sworn brother at the welcoming banquet. Right in front of the princess consort, she brazenly and boldly straddled the prince's lap. Smiling, she said, "The prince and I used to train with weights like this in the army. Sister Jen in Jan law doesn't mind, right?" I looked at the princess consort's deathly pale face, suddenly stood up, stretched out my long leg and sat on that woman's body. "Then didn't anyone sit on you to train? Let me help you." Looking at the woman whose face had turned green, I still wore a silly grin. I'm a fool after all, then surely no one would stoop to arguing with a fool. The ambiguous and flirtatious atmosphere instantly vanished without a trace. Xiao Kongjin, with a dark expression, pushed us both off with one motion. He pointed at me and scolded in a stern voice. "Mu Chang'an, you're truly making a scene." Meng Qingli sat back at his side, the hatred in her eyes fleeting, and laughed heartily. Rumor has it that the side consort has a childish temperament. Seeing her today, it is indeed true. Hearing this, Xiao Kongjin's face darkened even more. He has always disliked me, only because the nobles in the capital secretly mock me for being foolish, and he is the one who took over the mess. How ridiculous. I'm the legitimate daughter of a great general. My father is the emperor's confidant, and my brother is also a close minister to the emperor. If not for my mental deficiency, I would have been betrothed to the crown prince. Now that I've married him, a prince with mediocre talents who isn't favored by the emperor, he still feels wronged. The princess consort Shui Yao pulled me aside and repeatedly apologized to him. "Chang'an was just being playful. Please don't hold it against her, Your Highness." I curled my lips and helped Shui Yao up. "Sister Shui, we did nothing wrong, why apologize? I may be foolish, but I'm not stupid." Looking at the entire capital, forget about royal nobles, any family with a shred of dignity, Dan whose daughter would sit on a man's lap in public. Does she know no shame? After my sarcastic remarks, Meng Qingli's face turned from green to purple. I sat back in my seat and let out a cold snort. Years ago, Meng Qingli followed the army to treat wounded soldiers and met Xiao Kongjin. But later, Xiao Kongjin's maternal family was imprisoned, his mother consort committed suicide in the palace, and Meng Qingli left the capital under the pretext that her lifelong wish was to save and heal people. Xiao Kongjin could only marry the concubine Dan, born daughter of Minister Xue from the Ministry of Rights, as his principal wife. After I married him, he benefited from my father's influence, and His Majesty finally noticed this son again. Now that things are just starting to look up, Meng Qingli comes clinging around. I won't indulge her, but Meng Qingli somehow pulled out a woman's bellyband and said with a smile, "Since the side consort doesn't like me being close to the prince, how about we change games and play drop the handkerchief instead?" Shui Yao's face turned deathly pale in an instant. I looked closely and actually saw the character Yao embroidered on that bellyband. Xiao Kongjin's subordinates and brothers coughed twice, but their eyes stared lecherously at the bellyband. Sister Shui is a young lady from an official family, a refined maiden from a noble house. Having her intimate garment taken out and toyed with in public, she was humiliated and ashamed beyond words. I was furious and snatched the thing away. Meng Qingli's lips curved slightly as she looked at Xiao Kongjin with a mocking smile. "Ah, Kongjin, the women of the capital are still so rigid and boring, sticking to conventions, can't even take a little joke." Shui Yao trembled all over, standing frozen in place with a pale face. Seeing the situation about to turn sour, Xiao Kongjin's brothers quickly tried to smooth things over. "Sister Jan in Jan law, please don't take offense. Qingli grew up in the military camp and has always been so carefree. Doesn't understand propriety between men and women. Bah! The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. In a fit of rage, I actually lunged at Meng Qingli and reached my hands into her clothes. If you're so capable, play with your own. Meng Qingli cried out in alarm, clutching tightly at her collar. She thought that noble ladies of the capital always valued their reputation, and no matter how angry they were, they wouldn't do anything to her in public. She didn't expect that there would be someone as foolish and crazy as me in the capital. But what surprised me was that I didn't actually manage to strip off her belly band, but just now, if I hadn't been a step faster, she would have even turned around to sit face Jan to Jan face on Xiao Kongjin's lap. I cursed loudly. Do you have no shame? Aren't my father and brother both military men? Does that mean the young ladies, maids and servants at home can't wear undergarments when meeting them? Sister Shui and the maid finally managed to separate me from her. Meng Qingli immediately threw herself into Xiao Kongjin's arms, crying, "Lady side consort, you've misunderstood. Kongjin and I only have a life Jan and Dan death friendship." "Nothing more," I interrupted. "Your little schemes, even a fool like me can see through them." "Can't you all see it? What are you pretending for?" That group of men, scolded by me into embarrassment, couldn't help but avert their eyes. Xiao Kongjin, feeling ashamed, suddenly slammed the table and stood up. "Mu Chang'an, this is Prince Duan's manner, not your general's manner. This prince must teach you a lesson today." He gripped my wrist tightly, trying to snatch the belly band back. I struggled forcefully to break free, even biting his hand with my teeth. The scene became chaotic for a moment. "If you've got the guts, then kill me." I clutched the belly band tightly to my chest. "Let's see how you explain this to my father." I was using my power to bully others. Xiao Kongjin's movements froze, and Sister Shui immediately hugged me tight. "Your Highness, she is just a child speaking without thinking." Xiao Kongjin's face darkened, and in the end he left in impotent rage with Meng Qingli and the others. After returning to my room, Sister Shui applied medicine to my injuries. Xiao Kongjin had such strength that he left several bruises on my hands. Her eyes lowered, not knowing what she was thinking deep down. The men and sons Jian In Dan law of the Mu family all refused to take concubines, and I was the only exception Dan actually married off to be someone else's concubine. But I came here with my heart set entirely on Sister Shui, with no feelings for Xiao Kongjin, and even on the wedding night I threw Xiao Kongjin out of the room. But she was different with Xiao Kongjin. I pondered this, but couldn't figure it out. In the following days, Meng Qingli would either invite Xiao Kongjin to hunt in the countryside to reminisce about old times, or go with him to brothels for wine and women, under the guise of broadening his horizons. Sister Shui didn't say anything, but worry and sadness leaked from her eyes. It was rare to hear that Xiao Kongjin had returned to the manor, and her face lit up with joy as she stood. "Quick! The small kitchen has finished brewing the ginseng soup with the new recipe. I'll take it to His Highness to try." But when she arrived at Xiao Kongjin's courtyard, she saw him and Meng Qingli lying in the pavilion, roughhousing under the open sky. Her lips turned pale, forcing herself to remain calm as she stood there. I let go of her hand and stepped forward, angrily saying, "Your Highness, is this what you call just an old friend?" Meng Qingli straightened her clothes and stood up, the smile still on her face. "Lady side consort, watch your words. The prince and I are completely innocent. When we're on campaign, we all sleep like this, Jen. Just prop up a large cloth and lie down to sleep. Where are all these rules coming from? You noble ladies from the capital, your minds are just filthy." Xiao Kongjin looked displeased. "Qingli is right, between us is only brotherly affection. Now we just exchanged a couple of moves practicing martial arts, and you're already twisting it into something else." Xu Yao set down the ginseng soup, forcing a smile. "Then Chang'an and I won't disturb your highness any longer." Before leaving, I looked at Meng Qingli's smug expression and pointed at Xiao Kongjin, saying angrily, "You indulge her like this, sooner or later it'll bring great trouble." Xiao Kongjin didn't care much. Not only did he not distance himself from Meng Qingli, he even went sightseeing with her everywhere, maintaining close contact. Meng Qingli praised him. "Kongjin, you're right to begin with. How can you believe the words of a fool like her?" When Sister Shui heard about this, she even got into a fight with Meng Qingli over it. The usually gentle and modest noblewoman lost her temper for the first time, and had people throw Meng Qingli out of the prince's manor. When Xiao Kongjin learned of this, he even came to give her trouble. When he ran into Sister Shui having a delightful conversation with my second sister Jian in Jianlaw, who is a princess. In the courtyard, he could only suppress his bellyful of anger and leave with a flick of his sleeves. He even stayed at Meng Qingli's residence in the capital and refused to return to the prince's manor, leaving Sister Shui alone to be gossiped about behind her back by other noble ladies, who laughed at her for not being able to keep her man in check. It wasn't until the autumn hunt was held as scheduled that Sister Shui sent someone to ask him to come back. Without waiting for the servant to report back, Xiao Kongjin came with her. "Your Highness, you want her to come along." Sister Shui's face looked terrible. Xiao Kongjin had a nonchalant expression. So what? Seeing that the auspicious time was approaching, Sister Shui feared the emperor's blame and had no mind to argue with them. Then let Miss Meng get in the carriage quickly. Who knew Meng Qingli would glance at us and say disdainfully, "Carriages are things left for delicate women like you to sit in. It is stuffy inside. I don't need it." She insisted on riding her horse alongside Xiao Kongjin. All the accompanying female family members sat in carriages without showing themselves. Only Meng Qingli insisted on showing off how different she was. But she didn't understand that in the capital, those who rush to stand out are the easiest to lose their heads first. Not only that, but midway her horse suddenly had unstoppable diarrhea and collapsed softly by the roadside, refusing to move any further. In an instant, it slowed down our progress behind. The head eunuch by the emperor's side came to inquire, and Meng Qingli's eyes flashed with an unusual gleam. Xiao Kongfin was still explaining to the eunuch. Something happened with the horse. Meng Qingli laughed cheerfully. "Your Highness, this matter is easy to handle." After saying that, she actually mounted the horse directly, sitting boldly on his horse without any reservations. The Grand Steward only needed one glance to understand perfectly. "Your Highness, there must be no further delays." After speaking, he returned to the front. Xiao Kongfin hesitated repeatedly, but still mounted the same horse with Meng Qingli. Meng Qingli looked back, glancing at us smugly. Behind us, people whispered one after another. Where did such an improper woman come from? My God, she has no shame at all. Getting tangled up with a man in broad daylight in front of everyone. Prince Duan is really something too, Dan, with his princess consort and side consort sitting right behind him. Yet he is getting mixed up with a woman who has no title or status. I lowered the curtain and pulled Sister Shui back. Her hands were ice cold, knowing in her heart that the horse couldn't have had diarrhea for no reason. This was the imperial autumn hunt. Meng Qingli dared to act willfully and recklessly at a time like this. If they delayed and the emperor blamed them, Prince Duan's household would be finished. However, Xiao Kongfin had a beauty in his arms and seemed not to have thought carefully about these serious consequences at all. Even after reaching the hunting grounds and setting up camp, when Meng Qingli suggested sharing a tent with him, he agreed. Sister Shui's face was pale, thinking about how to persuade him. I took her away. Sister Shui, good advice can't save a ghost bent on death. If he really listened to what we said, he wouldn't have let her come along. Now let Sister Shui put on an act of being jealous. Like a married couple having a spat. If something really happens, at least they won't blame us. Just arrived, everyone was resting and recuperating. Big Sister Jen in Danlaw and Second Sister Jen in Danlaw came to our tent, eating fruit and chatting idly. I really couldn't understand, why does she belittle us with every sentence? She is clearly targeting Sister Shui because of the prince, but keeps saying she has nothing to do with the prince. What is the point? Second Sister Jen in Janlaw sneered. If she had admitted it early on, Prince Duan would have already taken her as a concubine. Saying she is completely innocent with Prince Duan is just because she thinks the position of concubine isn't good enough for her. Big Sister Jan in Janlaw spat. Our Chang'an is willing to be a secondary consort, only out of consideration for Sister Shui. Does she, a commoner's daughter, want to be Prince Duan's equal wife? Sister Shui gripped my hand tightly and looked at me. I smiled. My sisters Jen in Danlaw treated me extremely well, but they had household matters to handle and nephews and nieces to look after. While father and mother are still alive, the general's manor is my home. If father and mother are gone in the future, my sisters Den-in-Den-law can take care of me for a while. But they can't take care of me forever. I don't want the general's manor to have an unmarried maiden for life, causing my brothers and sisters Den-in-Den-law to be gossiped about. Only Sister Shui, whom I've known since childhood, she lost her birth mother when she was young and dotes on me, like a real younger sister. I'm just not completely sound of mind, but I can clearly sense who treats me well and who is sincere to me. I willingly married into the prince's manor as a concubine. With the support of the general's manor, Prince Juan gained power, and her days in Prince Juan's manor, and among the noble ladies, became much easier. The Mu family can make her suppress me, but that doesn't mean they can also let Meng Qingli suppress me after nightfall, at the bonfire banquet with singing and dancing, when Xiao Kongjin led Sister Shui and me to toast the emperor. Meng Qingli ran up in small steps and plopped down on her knees beside Xiao Kongjin. Everyone's expressions changed. The emperor put down his wine cup and leisurely spoke. "Who are you?" Meng Qingli raised her lips and graciously bowed to the emperor. "This commoner woman surnamed Meng is a close friend of Prince Juan, and once had the fortune of meeting your majesty." The emperor seemed somewhat interested. "Oh," Meng Qingli was overjoyed and spoke even more eloquently. "Your majesty, sympathizing with the soldiers' hardships, once personally visited the encampment in the outskirts of the capital after a triumphant return of the great army. This commoner woman, as an accompanying military physician, followed by the prince's side, and had the honor of seeing the imperial countenance." Xiao Kongjin's fingertips trembled slightly. The son of heaven's authority was imposing. He had feared this imperial father since childhood, and feared even more that Meng Qingli would break protocol and anger the emperor. In contrast, Meng Qingli had a look of complete confidence in victory. All along she had relied on this so-called uninhibited, straightforward and cheerful personality to win the favor of countless men. Meng Qingli believed that the emperor was also a man, so naturally he would be no exception. But she didn't understand that the imperial family was the place that valued etiquette and rules the most. "Even though I'm foolish, father and mother still had to invite a governess to teach me etiquette over and over again before they dared let me marry out." Yet Meng Qingli, on her own accord, rushed before the Son of Heaven, while His Majesty's son and daughter Den-in-Den-law were toasting. The emperor laughed ambiguously. "That truly is quite a connection." Hearing this, Meng Qingli was even more delighted. Just as she was about to speak again, she was stopped by Xiao Kongjin, who was already drenched in sweat. "Enough. Stop talking." She looked at him with displeasure and shook off his hand. Then she took 2 more steps forward, directly blocking Sister Shui and me, and knelt beside Xiao Kongjin, as if she were the Princess Juan, as if she were the perfect match paired with Xiao Kongjin. "Yes, your majesty, since then, your majesty has become the person this commoner woman respects most. This commoner woman often reads the articles your majesty has written, and keeps your majesty's teachings in mind." "Oh, you keep my teachings in mind?" I couldn't help but say. "Imperial uncle, don't listen to her." Chang'an, my father, seated below the emperor, scolded softly. I closed my mouth resentfully. Seeing this, Meng Qingli looked at me even more triumphantly. She nodded repeatedly, and lifted her eyes excitedly. Unexpectedly, she met the emperor's meaningful smile. The emperor spoke with a half-Jian smile. "Then do you know, right now is the time for my son and daughter, Den-in-Den-law, to offer a toast. And in what capacity are you stealing the limelight from the Prince Juan's consort?" Meng Qingli's body trembled, and the wine cup in her hand nearly slipped from her grasp. The emperor looked toward Xiao Kongjin and waved his hand. "Tonight is a joyous occasion. I don't want to spoil the mood either. You all may withdraw." Xiao Kongjin felt relieved and hastily said, "Yes, this son thanks Father Emperor." He tightly gripped Meng Qingli, and Sister Shui and I followed behind them as we withdrew. The next prince then brought his family to offer a toast to the emperor. Xiao Kongjin's expression was ugly. Although the emperor didn't punish them, his dissatisfaction with Prince Duan's manner was seen by everyone. During the autumn hunt, he didn't even summon Xiao Kongjin once. Even the sika deer that His Majesty personally hunted and distributed as rewards to everyone den the meat that reached my hands was sent by the Mu family. Xiao Kongjin and Sister Shui received nothing. After returning to the capital behind closed doors, he vented his anger on us. "You're both women. Why didn't you teach Qingli some manners at the bonfire banquet?" Sister Shui endured it, but I couldn't stand it anymore and pointed at him angrily. "Who should you blame? You should blame yourself. You're the one who insisted on bringing Miss Meng along. You're the one who indulged her to this extent. Don't pin every shitty thing on Sister Shui. Meng Qingli isn't part of Prince Duan's manor. Why should we control her? Xiao Kongjin, if you really like her, just take her as a concubine directly. Every day you two are here being all lovey-dovey, but won't say it clearly den what. Do you really want to give her the position of principal consort?" Xiao Kongjin flew into a rage. "What nonsense are you spouting?" Sister Shui was startled and hurriedly shielded me behind her. "Your Highness." Before she could finish speaking, Xiao Kongjin forcibly reached out and yanked me over. "In this king's view, it is you who has spoiled her into being so lawless." Speaking without restraint, he dragged me toward the courtyard, locked me in the room, and ordered in a stern voice, "From today onwards, without this king's command, no one is permitted to let side consort mew out." When Sister Shui tried to speak up for me, he coldly threatened, "Your father is merely a vice minister in the Ministry of Rights, Dan even. He doesn't dare offend this king. As this king's wife, do you still want to disregard propriety and defy your husband?" Sister Shui's face turned deathly pale, but I knew Xiao Kongjin was at the height of his anger, so I persuaded Sister Shui to leave first. I sat on the edge of the bed, fuming. The maidservant Shilu sat beside me and consoled. "Miss, back then the master, madam, and young master didn't want you to marry him precisely because they feared you'd suffer grievances. After all, right now, the one in charge of the household is still His Highness." I pursed my lips, but suddenly thought of something. "Then what if the one in charge were the princess consort?" Shilu cried out and interrupted me. "Miss, you mustn't speak such nonsense." I wasn't speaking nonsense. As long as Sister Shu divorces Xiao Kongjin, we can buy a house and live there for the rest of our lives. Or if Xiao Kongjin dies, we can also live in the prince's manor for the rest of our lives. Xiao Kongjin can't keep me confined. With just a flip over the wall, I can slip right out of the courtyard. I told Sister Shui about my idea. She just smiled and patted my head, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. I was very anxious because I thought this plan was feasible. So I had Shilu send a message back to the Mu residence asking my brothers to help me keep an eye on Xiao Kongjin, and also asked Mother to investigate Ming Qingli's past. She was able to just up and leave when Xiao Kongjin fell from power. Yet when he was ordered to go to Jiangnan to manage the flood disaster, she latched on to him. No matter how you look at it, she seems to only covet the power and wealth that Xiao Kongjin possesses. Xiao Kongjin didn't return all night. Early in the morning, someone delivered a secret letter to the prince's manor, saying they saw Prince Duan spending the night at Rouge Tower. I rushed over there with Sister Shui. I thought he had requested the company of a beauty. Who would have imagined we'd catch him and Meng Qingli lying in bed with dishevelled clothes? Men's clothing was scattered all over the floor. Meng Qingli had probably disguised herself as a man again, inviting him to seek pleasure. In this pleasure district, Xiao Kongjin was just waking from his drunken stupor, clutching his head with a pained expression as he got up. After seeing our figures clearly, his expression changed. "You, how did you get here? This kind of place, is it somewhere proper women like you should come? Leave at once." Meng Qingli used the blanket to half-jan cover her body, but it couldn't hide the marks from her neck to her collarbone. A smile played at the corners of her lips, her eyes full of provocation as she looked at Sister Shui. I suddenly understood. That secret letter this morning was deliberately sent by someone Meng Qingli arranged. The most outrageous part is that she clearly slept in the same bed with the prince. Yet she can still say with a straight face, "It is not what you think." Her petty schemes using such lowly tactics to force out the legitimate wife are really too disgusting. She knew that ever since she displeased the emperor last time, even Xiao Kongjin had become dissatisfied with her. To win back Xiao Kongjin, she could only use some special methods. No more ambiguity, but directly breaking through that thin veil. Sister Shui steadied herself and looked toward Xiao Kongjin. Just as she opened her mouth, she was interrupted by Xiao Kongjin. What this prince does I know in my own heart. The princess consort only needs to manage the inner household affairs properly. He had already humiliated her 3 or 4 times over. Sister Shui bit her lip, but could only swallow this grievance. Yes. Seeing this, Meng Qingli couldn't help but laugh. Princess consort. I was just playing around for a moment and got carried away with the prince. But rest assured, the prince and I are absolutely not what you imagine. I hope you all don't get the wrong idea. Already sleeping in the same bed, she could still lie through her teeth without changing expression. I truly had to hand it to her. Looking at the smile on Meng Qingli's face, I came to understand. Seeing that Xiao Kongjin had no intention of marrying her as his wife, she wanted to work on Sister Shui's side, disgusting her, making her unable to bear it and have a big fight with Xiao Kongjin. In the end, whether their relationship soured and they divorced amicably, or she was cast out, Meng Qingli would have achieved her goal either way. I looked sideways and saw Sister Shui's body swaying unsteadily, her face pale. Then she fainted and fell straight down. Sister Shui. When she woke up again, she was already in the prince's manor. While she was still looking confused, I gripped her hand tightly. Sister Shui, the physician said you're with child already over 3 months along. Shui Yao hadn't reacted yet. Xiao Kongjin then spoke with displeasure. Not even knowing you're pregnant yourself, princess consort, you're too careless. Meng Qingli stood to the side, her fingertips digging deeply into her palm. I spoke in an impatient tone. The physician said Sister Shui has disturbed her pregnancy. She needs to rest quietly and can't be stimulated anymore. She just woke up and the prince is already blaming her. What is the meaning of this? Xiao Kongjin choked. But a peculiar gleam flashed through Meng Qingli's eyes. She suddenly said, "That is right. The physician just said the princess consort needs to rest quietly, and absolutely must not overwork herself. But with so many people throughout the prince's manor, there are troublesome matters every day, and the side consort is mentally incompetent, so someone must help manage the household affairs. I have a deep brotherly bond with the prince. Helping him with this small favor is something I can do." Meng Qingli wanted to use this as an opportunity to enter the prince's manor, and Xiao Kongjin actually thought what she said made sense and agreed to it. He looked at me and Sister Shui. Qingli is right. Chang'an is naive and immature. If there are cunning servants who bully and deceive their superiors, she simply can't control them. You have a gentle nature and weak body, just focus on nurturing the pregnancy peacefully. Leave other matters to Qingli. Once you give birth to the eldest son, you can manage the household again. Sister Shui smiled self-Jan mockingly. I'll follow whatever the prince arranges. I can't control whose hands the household management authority falls into. But since Sister Shui was pregnant, I moved directly into her courtyard to live with her. Those responsible for food and daily life were all her trusted confidants. The matrons and servants guarding the courtyard were all servants loyal to the Mu family. Meng Qingli tried to frame us several times but failed each time. But she controlled the prince's manor, so there would always be opportunities for her to exploit. Summon come. There is a thief who broke into the manor. The prince's manor suddenly became brightly lit in the deep night. Servants held torches and chased people everywhere, finally bringing a man with a decent appearance before Xiao Kongjin. What is going on? Xiao Kongjin was woken up in the middle of the night and looked displeased. A servant said, "Reporting to the prince. This thief trespassed into the manor." Fortunately, Miss Meng's maid reacted quickly, so we were able to catch him in time. We've searched him thoroughly. He doesn't have anything else on him. Doesn't seem like he came to the manor to steal. In the main hall, there were only a few of us. Sister Shui was pregnant and resting in her own room. Meng Qingli looked straight at the man. "Speak, you sneaked into the prince's manor in the middle of the night. What are you trying to do?" The man kept his mouth tightly shut and made no sound. His gaze, however, seemed to drift toward me intentionally or unintentionally. Xiao Kongjin also keenly caught his unusual behavior and angrily said, "Confess truthfully now. If you refuse to speak, at daybreak this prince will personally escort you to the court of judicial review and have you tortured until you're willing to talk." The man's face showed terror as he kowtowed repeatedly. "I beg your highness to spare my life. I beg your highness to spare my life. I'm the nephew of Princess Shui's mother, her cousin." He pulled out an envelope from the sole of his shoe. It was Princess Shui who wanted to see me. That is why I risked my life to come. This really has nothing to do with me. A servant snatched the envelope and showed it to Xiao Kongjin, whose face immediately darkened. Meng Qingli, standing beside him, covered her mouth and said in surprise, "Kongjin, the princess is actually having an improper relationship with her cousin." Then she laughed. "No wonder. Since she herself is indecent, of course she'd always assume there is something between you and me, right?" I rushed forward and snatched the letter. Only then did I see clearly that the contents written on the paper were explicit and suggestive, simply too obscene to look at. Xiao Kongjin was very angry and immediately wanted to send someone to summon Sister Shui. Meng Qingli continued to add fuel to the fire. Her cousin risked his life to come here, such deep affection. Who knows if the two of them were all ready before the princess got married? Xiao Kongjin's expression grew even darker. The speaker had intention, the listener even more so. Meng Qingli was slandering Sister Shui for having an affair, making Xiao Kongjin suspect that the bloodline of the child in her belly wasn't pure and might very well be someone else's bastard. "Miss Meng, this little show you had someone put on is quite interesting." Sister Shui arrived late. The man kneeling on the ground lunged forward, the moment he saw her. "Cousin, save me, cousin." Then he was kicked over by Shilu. Sister Shui looked at Xiao Kongjin and said coldly, "Xiaoniang grew up poor. Her parents sold her into the Shui household as a concubine to support her brother. Though I'm a daughter of a concubine, I'm still a young lady from an official's family and have no contact with that household. As for this so-called cousin with a dog's face, I've never even seen him before. If your highness doesn't believe me, feel free to go to the Shui household and ask. Miss Meng, if you want to frame someone, you should at least investigate properly first." Meng Qingli smiled nonchalantly. "You two meet privately, so naturally no one else would know. After you took charge of the household in the prince's residence, it became even easier for you to avoid prying eyes. If I hadn't managed the household for you during this time, I'm afraid Kongjin would still be kept in the dark by you." Xiao Kongjin looked left and right. He stared at Sister Shui's slightly showing pregnant belly, his expression dark and unclear. Just as he was about to speak, Sister Shui and I exchanged glances. "Your Highness, Chang'an, and I also have another matter we wish to tell you. Your Highness, why not hear this matter out before making a decision?" Not understanding what was happening, I had already said, "Bring the person up." A strong and sturdy man strode in. His gaze was fierce, with a scar on his face stretching from his left eye to the middle of his chin, making him look menacing and terrifying. His eyes stared straight at Meng Qingli, and Meng Qingli, from the moment she saw the man's face clearly, her thighs were already trembling, barely able to stand. She held on to her maid, her eyes full of terror. Xiao Kongjin said coldly, "And who are you?" That man cupped his hands. "Greetings, Your Highness. Chen is Meng Qingli's husband." He suddenly let out an "oh," and smiled grimly. Or perhaps in her heart now, calling me her late husband would be more appropriate. Xiao Kongjin's eyes suddenly widened. He turned his head in disbelief to look at Meng Qingli. "You're married." The latter didn't respond, but her trembling body and unspeakable expression already explained everything. I looked at Mr. Chen and said with a mocking smile, "Meng Qingli, you falsely accused Sister Shui of fooling around with men. It seems you have quite a bit of experience and insight in this matter, which is how you came up with such a vicious scheme." Mr. Chen slowly recounted his past with Meng Qingli in full detail. It turned out that after Meng Qingli left the capital, she appeared to practice medicine along the way, but in reality only treated wealthy families. What she charged were exorbitant consultation fees. She was soon targeted by bandits. When passing through Lu County, she was robbed of everything and nearly defiled by the bandits as well. It was Mr. Chen who happened to pass by and saved her. He was a martial artist, very skilled in fighting, and his family ran a martial arts school. With him backing her up, Meng Qingli thrived in Lu County and no longer had to worry about being robbed by bandits. The two got married, but later Meng Qingli went to Suzhou to treat a wealthy family and happened to run into Xiao Kongjin again. She stayed in Suzhou and found out that the once down Dan and Dan out prince had now actually been personally enfoffed as Prince Juan by the emperor. So she got ideas. After returning to Lu County, she had the whole family go back to their ancestral home to worship ancestors and set up a trap on the mountain road they had to pass through, causing the horses to panic. That small path was both narrow and steep. The Chen family, people and carriage together, fell off the cliff, and with heavy rain for days afterward, they couldn't even search for anyone. As the surviving daughter Janin Jan Law of the Chen family, she disbanded the martial arts school. She packed up her belongings and fled to Suzhou to orchestrate a reunion with Xiao Kongjin. Then following him back to the capital, no one would know about her past. Unexpectedly, Master Chen had a strong fate and survived. At that time, she was the one who said she was pregnant. In our hometown, there is a custom that whenever there is a pregnancy in the family, we must return to our ancestral village to worship our ancestors and announce the good news. Our hometown was close by, just over 1 mountain away. She persuaded my parents, saying this child was the eldest grandson and should be taken seriously, so why not all go together? Who would have thought she had such a vicious heart, killing my entire family? Xiao Kongjin found it hard to believe. He looked at Meng Qingli. Is this really true? Seeing this, Master Chen sneered endlessly. He held a small box and threw it in front of Xiao Kongjin. When I returned home, she had already run off with everything. The place was completely empty. She didn't know where I kept my land deeds and property deeds, couldn't sell the house, so she only left this thing behind to vent her anger. Shi Liu stepped forward and opened the box with one motion. Exposed before everyone was a dried Jan-up. Pitch gem black thing emitting an extreme foul odor. Everyone's expressions immediately changed. It was a fully formed dead fetus. Meng Qingli was truly ruthless, having aborted her own child. He had thought Meng Qingli loved him wholeheartedly, so he indulged her disrespect toward his princess consort, indulged her jealousy and petty tantrums. And even when he saw through it, he didn't expose her. Little did she expect that not long after she left, she married another man. She even almost gave birth to a child. Master Chen said, Prince Duan, although she burned our marriage certificate, the one at the county office still exists. She is still my wife. Now I'm taking her away. I trust you won't have any objections. Xiao Kongjin hadn't spoken yet when Meng Qingli threw herself at his feet, crying loudly. No, Kongjin. You can't let him take me away. He'll kill me. Her only support now was Xiao Kongjin. He was a prince, a member of the royal family. As long as he wished it, no one could take anyone away from his side. Meng Qingli cried with snot and tears streaming down, looking like she was very afraid of Master Chen. Xiao Kongjin was about to speak when he was interrupted by Sister Shui. Your Highness, forcibly seizing another man's wife, Jan, if the censorate officials find out and impeach you. When the memorial reaches Father Emperor's desk, he'll know you've caused trouble again for that rule-breaking woman. By then, Father Emperor won't let you off lightly like last time. Xiao Kongjin's expression darkened. Meng Qingli glared viciously at Sister Shu, but before she could open her mouth, Xiao Kongjin's trusted aide had already covered it. He handed her over to Master Chen. Master Chen thanked him, wrapped one arm around her waist, and hoisted her away. Meng Qingli's limbs struggled frantically, pounding heavily on his back, yet his steps remained steady. I looked toward the man still kneeling on the ground. It is your turn. Do you want to talk yourself, or should I have someone beat it out of you? Seeing Meng Qingli being taken away, the man panicked too. I'll talk, I'll tell everything. He really was Sister Shui's cousin, brought in by Meng Qingli to frame Sister Shui and ruin her reputation. His family had no money left. With 5 sons at home, all the daughters who could be sold had been sold. Now they couldn't even make ends meet, so they wanted to use other means to make money. Xiao Kongjin had a terrible headache and waved his hand dismissively. The princess consort shall handle and dispose of this as she sees fit. Sister Shui bowed. Yes. After Xiao Kongjin left, Sister Shui sent the Sojian called cousin to the authorities. Let him be judged as he should be. The man kept begging for mercy. Cousin, we're relatives after all. You can't be so heartless. In the end, someone covered his mouth and dragged him away directly. After Meng Qingli left, Xiao Kongjin seemed to be questioning his life choices. He often came to Sister Shui's courtyard to show concern, and would personally ask the physician about Sister Shui's physical condition. Sister Shui, thinking about her pregnancy, took the initiative to bring up taking concubines or chambermaids to serve him. But Xiao Kongjin, perhaps feeling guilty, actually declined. With me assisting from the side, the internal affairs of the prince's manor didn't have a single mishap. Xiao Kongjin felt even more ashamed. Soon, Sister Shui gave birth to a big, chubby baby boy. Xiao Kongjin was overjoyed and held his son, cooing over him for quite a while. But after holding him for not too long, his vision went dark and he nearly lost his balance. The physician examined him and said his body was somewhat depleted. From that time on, Xiao Kongjin's health deteriorated day by day. On the day of their eldest son's first birthday celebration, Xiao Kongjin forced himself to receive all the guests and collapsed when night fell. Sister Shui personally fed him medicine. Xiao Kongjin was very moved. Sister Shui smiled and fed him another spoonful. "Back when you married me, Your Highness, it was during the darkest, lowest point of your life, Jan, right after your mother passed away, and when the emperor didn't favor you, you said then that you only had me." Xiao Kongjin seemed to recall those years as well, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I was a concubine's daughter. After my mother died, my father didn't care for me, and my mother wasn't valued. I could understand your suffering. I said that we husband and wife would work together, and under the imperial city we would surely have our day." You nodded and agreed. Xiao Kongjin seemed about to speak, but Sister Shu interrupted him. "But after Chang'an married into the prince's household to keep me company, you gained the support of the general's manor, and once you got power, you let other women bully me. Without the general's manor, there would always be someone else. As long as it gave you your chance to rise, I would still end up the same way." Xiao Kongjin's eyes widened, as if he didn't understand what she was saying. Sister Shui put down the medicine bowl. "I finally figured it out, and fathers can't be relied on, and husbands can't be relied on either. In this world I can only rely on myself." Chang'an was right. "The two of us women can survive just fine, Jian. Why should we have to live depending on your favor? What is more, you're a Feiwol who can't even figure out whose thigh to cling to, rotten mud that can't be plastered on a wall. After you die, I'll raise my child well and have them inherit your title in the future." Xiao Kongjin finally realized. It was you who poisoned me." I stood to the side, watching his eyes splitting with rage, and added, "It was Meng Qingli who first gave you the aphrodisiac to drain your body. We also have to thank her for providing us with the idea to drug you. We owe her our gratitude." Xiao Kongjin was ultimately angered to death by me. He died with his eyes wide open, unable to rest in peace. Sister Shui personally closed his eyes for him. After his burial, spring arrived. Sister Shui and I took the child and left the capital together, heading south to see the beautiful scenery of spring warmth and blooming flowers. On the road, passing through Suzhou, we encountered people arguing in the street. Curious, I pushed through the crowd to get closer, and saw right in the middle a woman with disheveled hair and a bruised and swollen face. Then it was Meng Qingli. I quickly waved to the back. "Sister Shui, look, it is her. Oh, my young lady. You know her." A nearby auntie immediately started chatting with us. She said this woman had been cast out by her husband, and when she arrived here it was like she was fleeing for her life. Later, she finally settled down, but then got entangled with men all around. She says everyone's just brothers, but who with eyes can't see what is really going on. Pertui, she is just shameless. One of the scholars came to Suzhou hoping to attach himself to some big shot. Meng Qingli took a fancy to him and fooled around with him day after day. Who would have thought the scholar deceived her, Zan? He was already married. And his wife back in the countryside was a feisty woman at that. She secretly came to Suzhou, wanting to give him a surprise, only to stumble upon Meng Qingli and the scholar feeding each other wine mouth to mouth. She immediately started fighting with Meng Qingli. The commotion went all the way from the tavern to the street. As the crowd dispersed, the barely breathing Meng Qingli also spotted us. Her pupils contracted, and she hastily covered her face with her hair. Sister Shui held the child in one hand and pulled me with the other. Let's go. I nodded, and walked with her toward the bustling marketplace, paying no more attention to the ruckus behind us. From then on, with mountains high and roads far, we were merely strangers passing by.